We are now zooming over to the great USA. What do they say? God bless America. We have now 3 speakers from America. Actually, they're beautifully connected because we've got Nimai Caitanya, and then we have Jai Shri, and then we have, I forgot the wrong way around. No, that's right. Nimai, and then Jai Shri, then Kilindi. No, have I got the right way around? You should have. Yeah. You're shaking your head.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know.
That's fine. We'll go that way. They're husband and wife, so we'll go that way. Is Nimai on?
I saw Nimai Chaitanya Prabhu, but I don't know. He's not on screen.
Oh, so maybe that won't be possible.
He
Anyway, in one order or another. Oh, he's there. Fantastic. So we have Nimai Chaitanya, and then we have Jai Shri, and then we have Kilindi. So Jai Shri and Kilindi are married, and Jai Shri came to the devotees through Nimai Chaitanya. So it's a lovely combination. And I'm going to introduce Nimai Chaitanya first. Nimai came to the devotees, first met them in 1986. So he's trodden this path for quite a while in this lifetime. And he met Srila Gurudev in 2002 and quickly took Diksha the very same year. He gave the devotees and the devotees acupuncture and also massaged Gurudev many times. And he has a wonderful practice, a medical practice, 25 years standing, and has written a book called Total Life Cleanse, Nourishment for Body and Soul. It's quite a tome. It's a very thick, very thorough, exhaustive book on maximum health, which is, I think, something that devotees are increasingly focusing on, because devotees' health is often quite up and down. I think there's an increasing acknowledgement that part of the Varanashram Dharma system is keeping your temple of a body intact so that we can serve and please Radha and Krishna and Mahaprabhu and Nityananda and Guru to a much better degree. So he's an expert in this area. So Prabhu, we're very excited to hear your offering. Thank you for joining us early in the morning from the USA, and Hari Bol, Dandavats, good luck.
Everybody can hear me okay?
Very well, Prabhu, very well.
Gurave Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tadalaya Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Narayana Namine. First, I'd like to offer my unlimited Dandavat pranams to Nitya Lila Pravishna Om Astotra Satra Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayana Gosvami Maharaj. And also unlimited Dandavat pranams to Nitya Lila Pravishna Om Astotra Satra Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and to all the beautiful Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis here. Thank you for this opportunity. Dandavat pranam. So, what a beautiful opportunity. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, and also this, like you said, Prabhu, this alchemical process that's happening. This is an alchemical process. It's really such a rare, wonderful opportunity to hear each and every jiva's experience of Srila Gurudev to some degree. To appreciate that is such a blessing at this time. And somehow it's all connected deeply, not only to our bhakti, but also to the insanity on the planet. I see all these Zoom calls and the intense amount of katha that's happening all over the planet. I have to believe is planting seeds that will have an impact in the future in some way as we all come together. Because as when Gurudev left, there seemed to be this disbursement and so much concern about that. But in some ways now it's like we're all coming together again. Lord Chaitanya's movement, Krishna is the trickiest. Lord Chaitanya's movement will continue as we cooperate, love each other, hear the mercy of Srila Gurudev and the beauty of Srila Gurudev. Such a powerful thing. So I'll just say a little bit. When I was young, I remember, I think I always wanted to be a hippie. I was just a little bit premature for that. I was born in 60. I'm 60 now. But you know, I admired the hippies. I admired Be Here Now. I got into Yogananda and meditated. And then I met devotees in college in Pennsylvania. And we took a trip to Gita Nagari. And I just remember thinking, this is amazing. I'll never become one of these guys, but this is amazing. And then I went to the Boston Temple, and many of you know Champakalata Dasi. She lives in California with her beautiful family and husband. And but she was a devotee at the Boston Temple, and I'd go there every day, and she'd give me piles of prasad. And finally, one day I went to England, and I met the devotees in England, and ended up, long story short, getting initiation in '86 from Bhagavan shortly before he ended up leaving. And in the meantime, I had met Brejanath in Holland. So all these little connections were being made. And after Bhagavan left, I decided to go to massage school, something that I wanted to do. So I studied massage. And I landed at the massage school in Northern California, and the founder of the place came down and said, "Hare Krishna, would you like to chant Hare Krishna every morning at sunrise?" So I knew I was in the right place. And, you know, in the institution, I sort of was concerned that if I leave, then will Krishna still be here? You know, because we were kind of trained that if you leave the movement, then you're finished. And I realized, well, that's not true. God is everywhere, and Krishna is taking care of me. So anyway, you know, long story short, I got great association with Bhakti-Tirtha Swami, with Naranjana Swami, some really nice devotees who maintained loving, compassionate relationships with me, and then got married, had kids, started a healing center. And then in 2002, I started communicating with Prabhu from New York, and he started sending me tapes and books and magazines. And there was a part of me that was just drinking it in, and a part of me was resisting it because I'd always heard, don't go see Narayana Maharaj, don't go see Narayana Maharaj. So then one day I found out he was in New Jersey. And I remember this molecule of intelligence that was still there that said, oh, if they're saying don't go see him, you should go see him. So I went, and it was amazing. When I got there, I remember walking into the class, and Shamarani Didi was giving a class and speaking about how to chant japa properly. And I was hearing things I had never heard before. And again, part of me was like, you know, what is this group? Who are these people? And, you know, because I'd been outside of ISKCON for some time, although I was chanting regularly some degree. And, but the feeling, there was so much love and so much intensity. And then I saw Srila Gurudev, and it was just a whole nother universe. And I was fortunate enough to go into a room with, I know Brajanath Prabhu was there because he helped bring me in. And then this one other devotee was there. And I remember Srila Gurudev looking at me with those intense blue eyes. And for me at the time, it was kind of scary because I had not been living in the temple for a while. And, you know, he just looked at me and said, yes, you have done some things, no harm. And he said, I will give you everything that your Srila Prabhupada has come to give. And he just looked at me so intensely, and it was just so amazing. Anyway, then he chanted the mantra, and it was interesting. He gave this other devotee, he said, you chant 4 rounds a day, to this one other person. And then he said to me, you chant at least 16 rounds a day, because he knew I'd been around for some time. So that was a whole nother thing, because in ISKCON, that kind of thing was never done. Anyway, after those 3 or 4 days, it was just so much was happening and so much was spinning inside. But what I do know is that the 4-hour drive home, I couldn't stop chanting. And I remember hearing again and again that the fruit of being in the association of a pure devotee is that you want to chant. And so for 2 or 3 weeks, you know, I went from chanting 3-4 rounds a day to chanting at least 16, sometimes 32, and it was so easy. And I just kept thinking, this is the association of the pure devotee. And of course, from that point on, I started going to the different festivals and writing Rajanath Prabhu and writing Srila Gurudev and going to the festivals. But in that New Jersey festival, I remember one thing that was very powerful was Srila Gurudev was getting a massage. And because I did massage professionally at the time, I was really nervous. I felt completely unqualified from the spiritual perspective. But, you know, I thought, well, why not? And so I went over there, but I was scared to go in the room. And some of you might know Rema Devi. She yelled at me and she said, Prabhu, why are you being so scared and so weak? You have to have greed. And I'd never heard in such a powerful way that idea of greed. I'd always been very, you know, careful and sort of on reverence and like that. And it really stirred up this thing, like my fear. I'm fearful of moving forward. So I finally pulled up the guts and I went up to Brajanath Prabhu and said, you know, I do massage. And he remembered me, of course, from Belgium. And he brought me right in the room. And I was one of the 5 or 6 people that were in there. And that sort of began that opportunity. And then I remember in Badger, some incredibly sweet, beautiful times. And, you know, I feel completely unqualified to have done that. It was just my skill in doing that service or doing that work in the world that gave me that opportunity, and the mercy of the devotees that allowed me in there. But just one insight into working with Srila Gurudev's body and being that environment. First thing is that his body, to me, was completely transcendental. You know, as a massage therapist or as a healer, for those of you who might do some healing work, whether you consciously know it or you sense it, we can sense energy blocks or stagnation, or we could call it the different gunas and you know, energies in a person's body. And to different degrees, we can even articulate that. But with Srila Gurudev, to me, it seemed like always a full stream of air. There was nothing blocking, anything like that whatsoever. It was like nothing I'd ever felt before. Not that I was surprised, but I really noted that. It was like a pure stream of pure prana, you know, on that level is all I can say. And then, you know, every once in a while when Gurudev was in that position, he would look up at different devotees and he would just for an instant catch their eyes. And in being in that situation where he's lying down, because it's not that often where, you know, Gurudev's in that submissive position, at least in my experience, you know, he would just look up and just sort of gaze sometime at different people and just that momentary glance. And I remember one time I was holding his head and some of the devotees encouraged me. Like I remember Chitananda Prabhu was often in there and he was saying Gurudev, he thought Gurudev really liked it because he would get very quiet and very peaceful and sometimes even go into an altered state or a deep state. And one time he just very briefly looked up at me and he gazed up at me, and that image is still imprinted in my consciousness. Those beautiful blue, crystal clear, penetrating eyes that you know, goes right to Vaikuntha. And on the call this morning with Tridandi Swami, we were talking about humility, because King Paranjan is described that when he went into the forest to hunt or to chase women, it was due to his great pride that made him lose his intelligence. And we were talking about humility and the importance of humility and how Gurudev always emphasized that. And I had always wanted a real guru. And I always believed that, you know, even within the institution at ISKCON, that a living entity, we all deserve to choose, not to choose, I mean, it's all mercy of Guru and Krishna. But I mean, we should not be controlled by an institutional situation when it comes to the spiritual master, because this is our life and this is God and this is, you know, we must have that choice. And I remember thinking, you know, in those days that I want a spiritual master that is real, that is so far beyond me spiritually that there's no doubt. And I remember knowing that to be true with Srila Gurudev. And we were talking this morning about how Uddhava looked up at the prem of the gopis, and it was like he had his cap on. He looked so high on the top of the mountain, and the cap came off. And this is when I first met Srila Gurudev, how I felt. And it was actually so easy to be humble in the presence of Srila Gurudev, not because I'm humble, but because of the incredible purity and the incredible level of advancement that, of course, he's an eternal associate of Radha and Krishna. So there's not even a question of level, but that contrast between the pure Sat Guru, Rasika Sat Guru of Srila Gurudev, and myself. So what a relief that was. I remember just a couple things that have been so prominent in the early stages. I remember when we were in Florida and Kirtananda was there. And I was very concerned because, you know, there's so much hoopla around that whole thing at the time. And Gurudev allowed him to speak. And this is probably 2003 perhaps. And so I was still a little bit like, you know, how will Gurudev handle this? And I was a little bit worried that, and I mean, this is my own fear, my own projection, but a little bit worried that what happens if Gurudev honors him more than is worthy of him to be honored? I was concerned that, you know, my material condition, that Gurudev wouldn't handle it properly, and it would upset so many people, because there was one camp of people that were horrified that he was there, and another camp was very happy he was there. So anyway, he allowed Kirtananda to speak, and he spoke basically Krishna consciousness with sort of be here now awareness, you know. And what happened was that after he spoke, you know, Gurudev clapped a little bit and appreciated him. And then he said, and I was worried, like, what's going to happen now? And then he said, you should all know that what he spoke is the very beginning of the beginning of the beginning of bhakti. And all of a sudden I felt very safe. I said, this is my perfect father, my perfect protector, because he taught etiquette. He taught everything in those 10 minutes that he spoke. He taught everything, how to respect, how to honor. And he also publicly put that person in the right place, because he was speaking, he was thinking he was speaking the highest philosophy. And Gurudev just put everything in perspective. And I felt very safe. And I knew at that point that this person is the most safe person for me to associate with and take shelter of in my life. So the years went on, and we have a family. So, you know, a busy practice here in Boston. And so most of the time when I saw Srila Gurudev was either in Houston or Badger, and then a couple times in India. We went with Jai Shri one year. And so those times in Badger, such mercy, I had so much energy. All I wanted to do was treat the devotees. It was like Gurudev's mercy and energy was just coming through so powerfully at those times. And then those wonderful opportunities to massage Srila Gurudev and be in that atmosphere was such an incredible blessing. I remember when we were in Delhi and Srila Gurudev, I was actually in the room, and they had asked me to come in and do a little acupuncture. Gurudev did not like acupuncture. He looked at me one day and says, too pokey. He didn't like it. But blood pressure was very high, so I came in the room, and I remember at that moment when Srila Gurudev said to Brajanath Prabhu, take me to Govardhan. And that understanding meant, in our minds, that that's when Gurudev wanted to leave this planet. And I remember Brajanath asking him 3 times, are you sure you want to go? And Gurudev said yes. And I still remember that time when they carried Srila Gurudev. Excuse me. When they carried Srila Gurudev out of the Delhi temple in that chair, and he had actually no energy. It was incredible. But as he was coming down, he was blessing everybody in the same way that he always did. Looking at everyone, making eye contact with everybody. He could barely keep his body up, but he was still blessing, blessing and blessing and blessing. And then he went to Govardhan, and so many pastimes happened there, as many of you were there. It was a very amazing time. And of course, we know that he tricked us all by not leaving Govardhan, but leaving later on Bama Maharaja's appearance day. But so many wonderful memories, of course. I just wanted to say one other thing is that when I first came in contact with Srila Gurudeva, there were so many, when I first met devotees, when I finally accepted that God is a person, and I'm an eternal servant of Krishna, because when I was studying the teachings of Yogananda, which to me was a very beautiful path, and I appreciate him, and what I learned about meditation. But I always had this image in my consciousness that there was like a triangle, and the top of the triangle was missing. Like, even sometimes the teachings were, I am God, you know, God is, Yogananda taught prayer to God, but there was never any clarity about who is God and who am I and what is my relationship. And when I came to Krishna consciousness, that all became very, very clear, very, very clear. And being in the institution, there were certain things. At one point I was serving Bharti Maharaj, Keshava Bharti Maharaj in Spain. And I remember one time he left his room and I was in the room and I opened up a cabinet. I was kind of snooping around actually, looking at different books, and I found the Caitanya Charitamrita opened, and it had a little note in it. And it was all these little notes, and it even said something like, you know, this is not for the general devotees. And I was like, what? So I started reading it, and it was the chapter 4, Adi Lila. And I started reading this. I had like an hour to myself, and I was like, I had never heard these, the internal reasons of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance. And it was such nectar, and nobody was talking about it. And I'd never heard about it. And then I realized when I met Srila Gurudev, that moment in that room, how all these threads happen in our life, and how Krishna's planting all these seeds all the way along. And we don't necessarily know why these seeds are being planted. But then I made the connection. Oh, they're telling me over here I'm not supposed to hear these things. And Gurudeva is telling me we must hear these things. We have to hear these things. And then when I first met him, it was like all the misconceptions that I had developed over the years due to institutional impressions just started falling away, and Krishna consciousness made sense again. And the path made sense again. And then the association with the beautiful, loving devotees of Srila Gurudev, everything started making sense again. And now I realize that I was saying this morning that the longer I'm on this path, the more I realize how fallen I am. Because how much do I really realize the love of Radha and Krishna? But Gurudev gave us the real standard. And he made it safe for us. And we understand that at every moment he's cleansing our heart. He's doing heart surgery. And he even said once that without us even knowing, he's doing this heart surgery. And I fully believe that, and I fully accept that. And I fully know that Srila Gurudev is the top of the top of the top. And that even though he does not want us to have Aishvarya mood with him, our caps fall up when we look at his greatness and his beauty and his rasika, beautiful nature. So thank you for the opportunity to say something. I don't want to take too much time. And thank you to all the devotees and this beautiful opportunity. Panchakalpa Tarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhyo Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Nimai Jai, Haribol. I'm very eager to see the picture behind you, which we can only see 2/3 of. Beautiful. Thank you so much. That's beautiful. Beautiful. Darshan. Haribol. There's something that comes up in Krishna consciousness for me all the time. I think it's a Chintya Beda Beda Tattva that is the causal ingredient of this. But it's just in the same way as we think we're the most special to Gurudev, and yet I can also understand how you're the most special and I'm the most special, and we're both the most special simultaneously. So of course that doesn't work logically at all, but what's logic got to do with the heart? And in the same way, every week we have glorifications, every week is the most special, and each one is the most special, and every speaker is the most special. It's an extraordinary quality, and I haven't felt anything other than that. Basically, the last glorification I've heard is the most special one. It's so beautiful. And firstly, I wanted to sort of acknowledge and have some real deep respect for people like yourself, unlike me, who didn't have to do this, but you made the move over from what you had institutionally been led into to making a choice to Srila Gurudev, and therefore having to deal with probably a lot of issues along the way of making that choice. There was a lot of pain and sacrifice involved. You probably had friends who disapproved of what you were doing. Maybe they came across later. All that kind of stuff. That is all very achingly difficult stuff to deal with. I was on that first 96 tour, so although I didn't have the vision to understand it all then, I could understand it something in my heart, and it's obviously become clear over the years. So I really want to acknowledge that. And in a sense, just like we owe a debt to the Prabhupada disciples, we also owe a debt to people like yourself who made that move and who showed by example. And I loved what you said. There were the 2 G's in your glory, or 3 G's because you were glorifying. So the 2 G's within the G, the 4 G's because you're glorifying Gurudev. But there were 2 G's that you mentioned: greed and glance stroke gaze. And I think the glance stroke gaze actually fuels our greed. And that struck a real chord for me, because when I first heard this word greed, it still makes a huge difference to me. And of course, because we're Tatastha Shakta and because we're conditioned devotees, we go in and out of greed. So when I don't have greed, I know exactly where to go. I go to greed for greed. And so I'm never bereft. I'm never cut off, because if I'm not feeling greed, I go for the greed for greed, and eventually get back to the greed. And that's what Gurudev, he taught us that, which actually links back to what Pramvallabha said about him. Gurudev always wanted us to catch light, to catch a fire. He wasn't so worried about our faults. He knew that they would burn off if we had the taste, if we had the fire. So you really implanted that in me. And also when you were sharing about the glance of Gurudev, those glances, I mean, that's, you have things you put into your meditations, then you forget them and re-remember them. So that's a really beautiful thing to connect me back to, that glance, that gaze. So Prabhu, thank you so much. That was really, really beautiful.
Thank you.
That's right. I hope one day to make it across to America and be able to lie on your comfy sofa there as well.
You're totally welcome. Totally welcome, sir.
I'm going to make that my own. It looks lovely.